Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another video. So we already ranked our quarterbacks, we ranked our running backs. Now we are going to rank every starting receiver in the NFL. I'm super excited to get into this. Receiver is one of my favorite positions in the NFL to rank. You know, it's probably receiver and quarterback are probably the most fun to rank. Now, what you'll notice with these rankings receivers are very volatile. So their ceiling is going to be pretty high, their floor is going to be pretty low, and everything in between. So just keep that in mind, and this list could very well look the complete opposite by the end of the year. Receivers are just so random, and they break out in such random years. So this is who I think. This is how I think the rankings will look at the end of the season. Obviously, it's going to be hard to predict. But let's hop into this. Coming in at number 32, we have Malik Nabers, the rookie. Fantastic prospect. Such a great draft choice by the New York Giants. But he is a rookie. He's unproven, and he's in a horrible offense with Daniel Jones and Devin Singletary. The Giants are going to be a very inefficient offense. They are not going to be a very good team this season. So I'm a little worried about him, but I do think that he's going to get every target. He's probably going to get every catch. He's going to be a great fantasy option, but in terms of starting wide receiver options, I don't know if he's the best out there right now. His ceiling, though, I did put 16th. Like I said, very volatile, especially rookie receivers. Rookie receivers can come out of nowhere, like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But I think his ceiling is probably about middle of the pack in the league, which is still really, really good. Coming in at number 31, we have a veteran, Kendrick Bourne from the New England Patriots. Last year, in 8 games, he had 37 catches, 406 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 7 seasons. His ceiling, I think, is probably 30th, like one spot above this, and his floor is probably last in the league. I mean, he could very well be the worst starting receiver in the league this year. The reason I put him over Malik Nabers is because he actually had a couple good games last year. He was hurt, obviously, as you can see from his games played, but he actually had a couple bright spots last season that I thought looked very promising, but we kind of know who he is as a receiver. I think this is the spot you rank him in. Coming in at number 30, we have Joshua Palmer from the LA Chargers. In 11 games last year, he had 38 catches, 581 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 3 seasons, and his ceiling, I think, if he breaks out this year as the wide receiver 1 in LA, I think he could be 24th. His floor, though, is he could be the worst starting receiver in the league. I truly, when I did my power rankings and stuff, I truly did not realize how thin the Chargers were at receiver. I mean, I should have known because they lost Keenan Allen and they lost Mike Williams. But I did not know Joshua Palmer was their wide receiver 1. That's actually kind of alarming. But he could do great this season. Coming in at number 29, we have Courtland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. In 16 games, he's put up 59 catches, 772 yards, and 10 touchdowns last year. He's been in the league for about 6 seasons so far, and we kind of know who Courtland Sutton is at this point. His ceiling, I think, is about 25th, but his floor is he could be the worst starting receiver in the league. I doubt it, but he could. Coming in at number 28, we have a very unproven talent in Khalil Shakir, who actually looked pretty good last year, but he's going to be the wide receiver 1. We'll see how he does with that role in Buffalo. He's got a great quarterback, but in 17 games last year, as I think the wide receiver 3 or 4, he put up 39 catches, 611 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 2 years so far, and his ceiling, I think, is 20th if he is a good breakout season this year with Josh Allen. His floor, though, is he could be the worst starting receiver in the league, unfortunately. Coming in at number 27, we have Christian Kirk from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last year, he put up in 12 games, he put up 57 catches, 787 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 6 seasons. His ceiling, I think, is 23rd. His floor, though, is just kind of around this area at 29th. Like I said, some of the other receivers. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Like I said, with some of the other receivers, we kind of know who Christian Kirk is as a player right now. He will probably get a majority of the targets from Trevor Lawrence this season, but I don't think it's going to be much more than what we've already seen from him. Coming in at number 26, we have a very talented receiver in a horrible situation in Deontay Johnson from the Carolina Panthers. Last year with the Steelers, in 14 games, he put up 51 catches, 717 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's been in the league for only 5 seasons so far, and his ceiling I think is 22nd, but his floor is 27th. This is kind of one of those low ceiling, high floor type of receivers. And I do think it was a great move for the Panthers to go out and get him and get Bryce Young, a very viable option at the wide receiver 1 spot. But I just kind of am concerned about how bad this offense is and how it will affect him. Coming in at number 25, we have Rashee Rice from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in his sophomore season this year. Last year with the Chiefs, in his rookie year, in 16 games, he put up 79 catches, 938 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Very solid rookie year. His ceiling, I think, is 22nd. His floor is 29th. Now, here's the issue with Rashee Rice. I think if Marquise Brown is healthy, and I could be wrong, I think Marquise Brown is probably the wide receiver 1. We don't know how much time Marquise Brown is going to miss. And you also have Xavier Worthy in there. So I think even if Rashee Rice is the Chiefs wide receiver 1, it's probably going to be, along the lines of what we've seen from the Chiefs receiving core ever since Patrick Mahomes kind of got over there, despite Tyreek Hill. But ever since Tyreek Hill has left, it's kind of been a committee. The receiving core has definitely been a committee, especially in fantasy. So I think that, Rashee Rice will see a lot more targets this year. He'll probably have a better year than his rookie year. Maybe over 1,000 yards, maybe closer to 10 touchdowns. But I don't think he's going to be like a top 10 receiver this year just because of how many weapons the Chiefs have and how Patrick Mahomes likes to distribute the ball. Coming in at number 24, we have another guy who's kind of in the same situation, in my opinion, Christian Watson from the Green Bay Packers. I think he's a little bit more talented than Rashee Rice. I think he had a really weird year last year. In 9 games, he had 28 catches, 422 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I don't think he played all 9 of those games. At least it doesn't seem like it. But he's been in the league for about 2 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 15th, so about middle of the pack. His floor, though, if he's not really utilized that much this season, I think could be 29th. Coming in at number 23, we have Calvin Ridley from the Tennessee Titans, a new addition for them, straight from their division rival Jaguars. In 17 games with them last year, he had 76 catches, 1,016 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 5 years now. His ceiling, I think if he is able to demand a lot of the targets in this offense, even though it is a bad offense, I think could be 17th, but his floor is, I think, 26th. You have DeAndre Hopkins. Don't know how much of a threat he is to the target share at this point in his career. But when you have kind of competition for targets and what should be a pretty bad offense, I don't know. It's probably not the best. Coming in at number 22, this is a guy I'm very, very high on. We have our second rookie receiver on this list, Marvin Harrison Jr. from the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, he is a rookie, didn't have any stats last year. His ceiling, I think, is 10. I think he could break out and be a top 10 receiver this year for the Cardinals. I mean, he is so talented. His ceiling could even be higher than that. But this is just a safe ranking for him. His floor, though, I think is 26th. If he just has a little bit of a shaky rookie year with all of the expectations. Coming in at number 21, we have a guy who's probably going to be in a really bad offense this year, Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders. Last year, for Washington in 17 games, he had 79 catches, 1,000 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 5 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 18th. His ceiling is obviously severely capped, with how bad the Commanders' offense will most likely be this year. But his floor, I think, is a lot lower than how high his ceiling is. I think it's around the 29 spot. If he doesn't perform as well this year, if Jahan Dotson has a really good breakout year, cements his position as wide receiver 1, you never know what can happen. But I think Terry McLaurin is a very talented receiver, a very underrated receiver as well. Coming in at number 20, we have George Pickens from the Pittsburgh Steelers. In 17 games last year, he had 63 catches, 1,140 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's been in the league for 2 years now, and his ceiling, I think, is 15th, about middle of the pack, and his floor is about 23rd. I think with how stagnant and probably rush heavy the Steelers offense is going to be this year, I think it kind of caps his overall ceiling. But he could have a breakout year this year with, being the firm wide receiver 1 with Deontay Johnson gone. So we'll have to see what happens. I do think his ceiling, though, is a little bit capped just based off of how this offense will probably be. Coming in at number 19, I have Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns, Mr. Reliable. I mean, this guy has to be one of the most reliable, underrated receivers in the league. In 15 games last year, he hauled in 72 catches, 1,250 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's been in the league for 10 seasons already, and his ceiling, I think, is 17th. His floor is 22nd. Low ceiling, high floor type of player at this point in his career, but very, very reliable, even at this stage in his career. Coming in at number 18, I have Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be a guy, and you'll see the next guy I rank right above him, going to be in the same situation, but this is a guy who's in it's going to be a very run-heavy offense. I do think that he'll probably see a majority of the targets in this offense, especially with Josh Downs injured to start the year. But in 16 games last year, he had 109 catches, 1,152 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 4 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 15th in the league, so about middle of the pack. His floor, though, is 23rd. Another one of those kind of low ceiling, high floor type of receivers. Coming in at number 17, we have a guy, Zay Flowers from the Ravens. Obviously, a guy I'm super high on. I think he can have a really good year this year. Very, very talented receiver. And he showed a lot of good flashes in his rookie year. Now, like I said, with Michael Pittman, he's going to be in a very run-heavy offense, obviously, with Derrick Henry and Lamar. But I think he's going to get a majority of those targets in this offense. In 16 games last year, he hauled in 77 catches for 858 yards and 5 touchdowns. Obviously, only been in the league for about 1 year. His ceiling, I think, is 14th. His floor, though, I think is 23rd. Coming in at number 16, we have Drake London, who is going to be one of those. There's a couple receivers on here you're going to notice that are going to be ranked a little higher just because they're benefiting off of such a massive quarterback upgrade. And Drake London is one of those guys for sure. He would not be this high if Desmond Ridder was still his quarterback. But in 16 games last year, he had 69 catches, 905 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 2 seasons so far. His ceiling, I think he could break out, be a top 10 receiver this year. His floor, though, I think is 27th if he's not really the receiver that we think he is. But he's showing really good flashes. He's a very talented guy. So I think with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, I think he's going to have a breakout year. Coming in at number 15, we have DJ Moore, another one of those just really reliable receivers that's just so good from the Chicago Bears. In 17 games last year for the Bears, he had 96 catches, 1,364 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And that's with playing with a banged-up Justin Fields and Tyler Badgett, I think is his name. I can't remember his name. So poor quarterback play, honestly, and still put up a really good year. He's been in the league for about 6 years now. His ceiling, I think, is top 10, at that 10 spot. His floor, though, I think is 18th. But no matter what, I think he's going to be kind of in this area, even if he does have a lot more target competition this season. Coming in at number 14, we have Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints. In 16 games last year, he put up 87 catches, 1,123 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 2 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 7th. So within that top 10 spot, if he really has a good breakout year this year. I feel like he kind of took a step back or just didn't really perform like we thought he would last year. So maybe this is his breakout season, but his floor, I think, is 18th if that does not happen. Coming in at number 13, we have another old reliable Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 17 games last year, he had 79 catches, 1,255 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Every year you think Mike Evans is going to regress. He just has an even better year. He's been in the league for 10 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 10th. His floor, though, I think is 20th if this is the season that he starts to perform a little worse. Coming in at number 12, we have DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks. And it's kind of weird. At this point in his career, DK Metcalf has kind of turned into one of those low ceiling, high floor type of receivers, which I never really thought he would be, but he's just kind of a safe option. And maybe that changes when Tyler Lockett leaves the Seahawks, but I don't know. At this point, I just feel like we kind of know what we're getting from DK Metcalf year in and year out. But in 16 games last year, he put up 66 catches for 1,114 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's been in the league for 5 years now. I think his ceiling is top 10, but his floor is 16th. Coming in at number 11, and it feels so weird to rank him outside of the top 10, but we have Cooper Kupp from the LA Rams. In 12 games last year, he put up 59 catches, 737 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's been in the league for only 7 years, which I thought it would be a lot more, but I think he was an older prospect. His ceiling, I think, is 6th. If he can be the Cooper Kupp or get close to being the Cooper Kupp that we all know from 2021 and 2022. But his floor, I think, is 16th, so about middle of the pack in terms of starting receivers. I was kind of surprised. I mean, I'm assuming Cooper Kupp is still going to be their wide receiver 1. He is on their depth chart, but I would think that Puka might take that spot by the end of the year, but we'll see. We'll see how Cooper Kupp bounces back. Coming in at number 10, we have Stephon Diggs from the Houston Texans. In 17 games last year, he had 107 catches, 1,183 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's been in the league for 9 seasons so far. His ceiling, I think, is 7th, but his floor, I think, is 18th. And the reason he has such a bigger floor, I don't think... this is honestly kind of a generous ranking for Stephon Diggs, in my opinion. In fact, I think I originally had him ranked even higher. Because I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to be as good this year as a lot of people think. Because he's got the name value. But when you look at it, they have Nico Collins, who had a breakout year last year. I honestly think he'll probably end up being their wide receiver 1. And then you have Tank Dell, who had one of the best rookie seasons last year of any offensive rookie before he got hurt. And just 2 great young talents. I think that Stephon Diggs will still be heavily utilized, but I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 we're used to in Buffalo. I think it's going to be more of a committee, especially with a quarterback like CJ Stroud, who's so good at sharing the ball and getting it out to different guys. So I think Stephon Diggs is such a great talent. He's going to be a great addition to the offense, but I don't think he's going to be as good. He's not going to be the Buffalo Stephon Diggs that we know. And even the last half of last year was horrible from Stephon Diggs. Coming in at number 9, we have Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets. This is another guy who's going to benefit from getting a massive quarterback upgrade this year. In 17 games, he put up 95 catches, 1,042 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And that was with Zach Wilson. And I don't even remember who else at quarterback. Tim Boyle. He's been in the league for about 2 years now. Very, very talented receiver. I think his ceiling, he could be top 5 with Aaron Rodgers. He very well could be. And his floor, I think, is 14th. But he's going to be great this season. I'm really excited to watch how, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson benefit from having Aaron Rodgers. Coming in at number 8, we have Deebo Samuel from the San Francisco 49ers. And this is kind of one of those tough rankings just because we don't really know what's going to happen with the 49ers Ayuk situation. I think if Ayuk leaves, I don't really know if that's a good thing for Deebo Samuel, to be honest. I mean, it might be in fantasy because he's going to get so many more touches. But I think he benefits from having Ayuk and Kittle, who are such great pass catchers, because he is kind of like a Swiss knife at receiver. He does a lot of different things, and I think if he has to be the only receiver on the team, it might not honestly be a good thing for him. But in 15 games last year, he had 60 catches, 892 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And I didn't put his rushing numbers on here. I probably should have. But probably a lot of rushing yards and decent rushing touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 5 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 7th. His floor is 9th. Very, very capped ceiling, very, very capped floor, just because I think he's such a safe option at this point that we kind of know what we're getting from him. Coming in at number 7, we have Devontae Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders. In 17 games last year with Jimmy Garoppolo, he had 103 catches, 1,144 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's been in the league for 10 seasons so far, and his ceiling, I think, is 7th, but his floor is 16th. Now, you may be asking, why did you put him at the ceiling? Why is he literally at his ceiling? I'm a big Devontae Adams fan. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think he is going into his year 11, but to be honest, we've seen receivers stay good at this point, and I think I put his floor pretty low because if he really does digress this year, he could be in that number 16 range, but I don't think he will. And I think Gardner Minshew is actually a pretty good upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, where I think he'll still remain consistent this year. Coming in at number 6, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Detroit Lions. This guy is a breakout receiver. He's going to be in a great offense again this year. But in 16 games last year, he put up 119 catches for 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 3 seasons so far. His ceiling is 3rd. He could be a top 3 receiver this year very easily. His floor, though, I think is 9th. No matter what, this dude's going to be top 10. He is so talented. Coming in at number 5, I have Tyreek Hill from the Miami Dolphins. In 16 games, he put up 119 catches for about 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns. Such a good receiver. He's been in the league for 8 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 3rd. He probably is a top 3 receiver right now. I just think he might regress a little bit next year. But his floor, I think, is 9th. Just like Amon-Ra, he's going to be a top 10 receiver no matter what. And honestly, like you'll notice, numbers 1 through 6, they could all change this year. They are all, I think, in the same tier, in my opinion. But coming in at number 4, we have A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. In 17 games, he put up 106 catches for 1,456 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 5 years now. His ceiling, I think, is 3rd. Could be top 3, but his floor, I think, is 6th. A.J. Brown's just physically such a good receiver, and I think he'll have an even better year this year. More like his 2022 season than last year. Coming in at number 3, we have Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. Last year, in 16 games, he put up 100 catches for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, the key thing there is he did not have Joe Burrow most of the year. It was a really weird it was a really weird year for the Bengals last season. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I still think he's a top 3 receiver. I think he's going to have a really good year this year back with Joe Burrow. He's been in the league for about 3 seasons now. His ceiling, I think, is he first. He could be the top receiver this year. His floor, I think, is 6th. Because, like I said, these 6 guys, I think, are all in the same tier, in my opinion. Coming in at number 2, I have Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings. Last year, he dealt with some injuries, but in 10 games, he put up 68 catches for 1,074 yards and 5 touchdowns. This dude was on a tear before he got hurt. You can look at the numbers. In 10 games, he put up 1,000 yards. That's obviously 100 a game. That's what you're looking for, and that's while he's dealing with injuries. That's while he had no Kirk Cousins towards the end of the year. And so it's I think that Justin Jefferson probably still would have been number 1 in my opinion if he didn't get hurt or if Kirk Cousins didn't get hurt. But I just want to see how he does this year with the injuries. I think he'll bounce back just fine. But he's been in the league for 4 seasons now. His ceiling could be number 1, and his floor I think is 6th. I gotta tell you the top 2 guys on this list. It's like 1A, 1B to be honest. And I had such a hard time deciding who I was going to put number 1. But they just had such a good year last year, and they are so talented. But at number 1, I'm going CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. In 17 games last year, 135 catches for 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's been in the league for about 4 years now, same as Justin Jefferson. His ceiling, obviously, NA. I think he's going to be number 1. His floor, though, he's going to be top 3 no matter what. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is a little bit safer than Justin Jefferson just because he's going to have the more consistent quarterback play with Dak Prescott, who's still a very good quarterback, whereas Justin Jefferson's going to have Sam Darnold. And I think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback, but I just think it's I'm a little more trusting on the Dallas Cowboys situation. So I think that CeeDee Lamb will probably be the best receiver this year. I think he was the best receiver last year. It was either him or Tyreek Hill, to be honest. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think. Who would you change? Who would you move up and down? These receivers, it was really hard to rank. I would say out of the 3 position groups, the receivers were probably the hardest to rank just because they're all so talented and they could very easily move all around this year. It's just one of the hardest positions to predict, to be honest. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. I believe the next video we're going to be doing is a breakout candidate from each NFL team. And yeah, that's going to be a really fun video. So make sure to stay tuned. That one will probably be coming out August 28th. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later.